All right guys, Eric Cogorno here with Performance Golf. In today's video, I'm gonna show you a drill that I gave to a recent student of mine that completely transformed his downswing and his ability to hit the ball solid consistently with his irons. And I believe it'll do the same thing for you. Now, a gentleman came in to see me. He said, Eric, I've been trying for like the past 10 years to get more hip rotation through the downswing, and no matter what I try, I'm not able to do it. And the drill I'm gonna show you today is what I showed him, that after we hit together, maybe 10, 20 swings, he was able to get hip rotation like he never was able to before. And it's all about where you put your focus on how you're rotating your hips. So let's dive in. I want you to do this with me. If you could grab a club or an object, put the club on your hips, kind of just below your belt line in front of you, and hold it to where like both of your palms are pointing behind you. I'm holding my lead hand on the front end of the club and my trail hand here down by the club head. And what I want you to focus on and feel is that you're gonna use your right hip or your trail hip to push the right side of this club forward through the ball and into your finish position. Now, the caveat how I want you to do it is I want you to take your trail hand, and as you're pushing your right hip through towards the target, this is the piece that really helped my student, feel like with your trail hand, you're actually pushing the club back behind you, and you're using your hip, right, to resist that and push it forward. So some people do this drill. I don't want you to do it and just, push this club forward. Push back with your trail hand and push your hip forward. Now notice, like my student, what I'm trying to do is get to an end goal where my hips are fully square towards the target and the right hip is about even with the left. If we show a good ball striker on the screen here into their finish position, we'll see they're able to get their trail hip or right hip all the way even with the left by the time we get into the finish position. And that's cue number one that I want you to focus on. And like my student, feel that right hip pushing through, and we'll add some layers and get even with your left hip by the time you get into your finish position. And similar to that shot, what my student got, the whole point of increasing this hip rotation is to hit the ball consistently solid. When I increase my hip rotation, when I work through there, what I'm gonna get is a low point that's more forward. Okay, during my downswing, the more I'm able to get my right hip forward, the easier it is for me to be able to hit ball first, ground second, hit it solid. The more my right hip stays back, my low point's gonna be back behind the golf ball. I can't get there, fats, thins, inconsistent. So we're using the right hip to get the hip rotation to move the low point forward to hit ball first, ground second. So cue number one was, hey, let's get the right hip even with the left, okay? Pull back with the right hand, push forward with the right hip. The second cue, and this is where it really was a light bulb moment for him, I said, hey, when you're doing this drill, notice where the club head is relative to the golf ball through the hit. If we do this well, the club head gets at and then past the golf ball. The club head gets to and then through the golf ball. So when you're doing it, you can reference in your vision that this club head gets past the golf ball. It's okay if it comes off your hip just a little bit, but the club head gets past the ball. If I do it poorly with no hip rotation, the club head stays back here, never gets past the ball. This is what my student looked like. No hip rotation, right? So if that's you, right hip through, get the club head past the golf ball. And that's the same feel we used to get the right hip even with the left into the follow through. And the goal there is similar to that, very solid shots, high, it's an 8-iron, pretty dead straight, about as solid as I can hit it. Okay, so right hip through, club head to, and past the golf ball. Now, a couple other cues that I gave him that might help you as well. Not only does my right hip get even with my left when I do this, notice my right knee also gets even with my left. So I want to feel when I get through, if I do it bad, no hip rotation, the hip's back, the knee's back. That's bad. If I do it well, the hip's through and so is the knee. So the right hip gets even with the left, the right knee gets even with the left, and if anything, they're very close together, like they're almost touching. If I have no turn, if I pull my hip back, notice how my knees get farther apart. Right knee kisses the left. So it's just an added layer to feel the same thing. Push the right hip through even with the left, and feel the right knee get even with the left. Different way to feel the same thing into that finish position. Look how close my knees are. See how my hips fully forward, my hips are pushed forward and turned towards the target. Now the other little layer that I added was, and this might help you as well, is okay, my hips forward, my knee is forward, and let's notice my trail foot when I swing through. If my hip goes forward and my knee goes forward, what's my right foot look like? My right foot is up on my toes, right? The shoelaces point towards the target. I've only got a very little bit of weight there. If I do the no hip rotation, knee back, hip back, foot down, no turn. Hip through, knee through, foot on the toes, good. So as my right hip, I'm pulling back, my right hip's going even with my left, my right knee's going even with my left, and my right foot is up on my toes, okay? So it's similar thing, just to accomplish the same goal. Hip through, knees close, foot, right, is up on my toes. And that'll give me the same exact pieces. Now, when you're doing this from the down the line angle, a lot of times when you're struggling to get your hips rotating and turning and getting through the golf ball, what's happening is they're oftentimes moving too far in towards the ball. So from this angle, the hip, the knee, the foot, instead of turning through, go in towards the golf ball. So let's put on the screen, and we could also show a good player potentially. If we put a line up the toe line, like there's a wall here, as I'm doing this drill, my hip should stay inside of that line. My hip does not go towards the golf ball. My hip does not go forward of that wall. My hip stays inside that line. My knee also stays inside that line. Let's put that line up the toe line. My knee stays inside the line. So as my right hip pushes forward, my right knee goes in towards my left and close together, and my foot goes on my toes. Nothing goes forward of that line when you're doing this drill. It's such a good way to feel it. Obviously, when I get through here, my hips have a little bit of tilt still. Right hip's a little lower than the left, but everything stays inside that wall. Okay? Right hip forward, right knee, right foot with everything inside of that wall line. So see my finish position, another solid strike there. Hips are fully forward, right hip at the left, right knee forward, toes are up, and nothing went in front of that line. This was really big for my student. I'm telling you, he said like 10 years of trying to rotate his hips, he couldn't do it. And we did all this within about a half hour with the lesson. I bet this is gonna help you as well. All this rotation, better contact, more power, more club face control. Give this one a try. If you have any questions, as always, leave a comment down below. Appreciate you guys watching.